Hello viewer, and welcome to a special episode of the F1 Mega Career, because today we've got 2 races instead of the normal one. Unfortunately, at the risk of poor watch time, but at this point in the YouTube history it's not that much of an issue. The first race was a bit of a disappointment, so we're going to do a quick 1-minute roundup and then call it a day, because in practice it was raining. Thought we'd get some practice on the inters. Turns out it's wet conditions because I just spin out. I had the slowest crash I've ever had in my entire life of playing F1, and that is, I can assure you, a long time. I go back to playing since F1 2010. So we didn't get any dry running practice because of the crash. The practice did eventually dry up, so we didn't get any time to do any quali practice. So we come P11th, which isn't bad because our normal objective is P12. It just seems a bit weird that the team bumped the objective up for a race where I crashed in practice. But anyway, we come onto the grid in P11. Our target for the race is P9 as we head to the grid for the Spanish Grand Prix. We didn't get any practice in the wet in the practice session, so the wet tyres are going to be a new variable, but it shouldn't be too much of an issue. Vettel on pole, ourselves in P11, and I think my teammate Paul Resta came in P15, P16, so not a great weekend for Force India. Kimi Raikkonen on the slot to the right as we start the Spanish Grand Prix. We get a decent initial launch, but I'm used to the newer games where you sort of go through the gears a lot quicker to reduce the chance of wheel spin. So we get past Kimi Raikkonen, Kobayashi and Perez, but he does come back to defend. We have a bit of a contact from him as he comes in a bit faster. I think he had Kobayashi, his teammate, down the inside. Speaking of, what a move from him. The only reason why we get the chance to come back is because his teammate Perez has a bit of a wobble as he tries to avoid piling into the back of Rosberg. Hangs it round the outside and then in the inside for the following corner. He stays there. We have to give him room, but fortunately for us, due to the nature of the next corner, he has to back out of the move. So we will get P8, that is one above our objective. Yeah, it was our objective. P9 was our objective for the race. Rosberg gets ahead. We've got this straight to contend with. Perez is probably going to get a good exit, and he does. He's going to the left, looking for the inside, moved into the braking zone, but I think if it had been in dry conditions, he would have got the move. Hang on for now, Rosberg is ahead, and I think it's going to be a little bit too difficult for us to get ahead of Rosberg at this point, due to the pace difference between the two cars, and that does turn out to be true. Unfortunately, it was a very dull race, and that's all the highlights you're getting for this race, but I can assure you, if you are still watching, as unlikely as that may be, that the Monaco Grand Prix is one worth watching, in my own biased opinion. P8 then, our team came in P13, but we move on to the main event of this video, which is the Monaco Grand Prix. We're finally going to get some good racing here. Spain was a little bit dull, but we're moving on to greener pastures, so they say. Practice 1 came in P1. Could not believe it, to be honest. This early on in the season we finished P1. But as Jeff will say here,
P1, great job. We don't know what fuel loads everyone was running out there, but this is certainly a positive practice.
so we cut Jeff off for him daring to say that we were only fast because people were on different fuel loads. But as Q1 comes around, P7 is the place we finish it within the first qualifying session, and that carries through to Q2 as well. So it's looking like P7 is where we're going to finish for Q3. So we'll take you around the lap for our first Q3 lap, the banker one, but unfortunately I do tap the wall in the tunnel, and the reduction in downforce mean I do miss the corner heading out into the chicane. So we're going to head to our second lap in Q3, and due to the shortened time of Q3, this would be the only chance to put a lap in, seeing as our last one was compromised because of our front wing failure. As we head through to Sandoval, Jensen Button, despite the fact that there's barely any time left in the session to complete a lap, going very slowly around the lap, and that is not a good start to our only flying lap. it doesn't get any better as we come through to Mirabeau. Yeah, Mirabeau. Perez ahead, and he does an absolutely amazing job of just getting in the way at every possible opportunity. And he slows down as well, which is really annoying. This is the worst offence as we come through to the tunnel. Just on the racing line, and slows down. So we're not going to get a very good lap in. We're going to have to try and time wherever we can as we come down to the Nouvelle chicane, turn 10. Very close to the wall there. I was very lucky not to aim my front left tyre into that barrier that juts out. Go into the swimming pool section. This is my probably favourite two corners on the track, 15 and 16. Like the way you're on the finest of margins trying to get that right. And I knew I had to make up as much time as possible coming out of this corner, and I just put too much steering input in, put the throttle down, and I've buried it into the barrier. It's quite embarrassing, but the team don't mind because I've matched the objective, and despite the fact that they've got to do a overnight repair, perhaps it wasn't that bad, it was only front wing, it was a fairly low impact, but you can imagine if this game had a expanded damage model, that would have been quite nasty. Lewis Hamilton on pole, ourselves in P10, and yet again, our teammate, I genuinely can't remember where he finished. It was, I'm going to say 12th, 13th? As we head to 5 lights for the Monaco Grand Prix, yet again, Raikkonen are right as the lights go out and away we go. So we got a good start from the people around us. Raikkonen looking for a move between Senna and Ricciardo, and he just gets squeezed. So I think it was Ricciardo who loses his front wing here. It might be Raikkonen, as soon as he's going slowly on the right as we head up to turn 3, Massenet. Just hanging it in the inside, Ricciardo giving us a little bit of a squeeze. We head down to Mirabeau once again. This is normally a great opportunity to just dive down the inside, and we do, but we don't get the move. Ricciardo just giving us enough room to not be contact, but he leaves the door open round the hairpin as we head down to turn 7 and 8 of Portier. A little bit loose as we head down through turn 8 into the tunnel. Senna ahead, Ricciardo behind, and we've already made 2 places up on the first lap in Monaco, where overtaking is a little bit difficult, a little bit tricky. Head down to the Nouvelle chicane, get it right, and that is a corner where you can be a little bit cheeky with track limits, and I do push it, to be fair, in order to get a result, but one of the first times I'm actually playing with realistic rules and flags, and that includes track limits, so if I was cutting it, the FO would let me know. As we head down to La Rascas, I took a really odd line thinking I can go round Senna, even though he's got the inside, and that's just not really an overtaking move unless you're on the inside of that corner, so we head to the end of lap 1. We've made 2 positions, so we'll have a look at a little replay of the start and perhaps see who took that contact and who lost their front wing. And you can see it on the ground, but I didn't get a glimpse of who it was as we head up the hill, climbing to Beau Rivage, and then beyond that, Massenet on the inside of Daniel Ricciardo there. We didn't quite get the move. He hangs it out the outside very nicely, and then it tightens up from on the inside, but we're not happy with how we got past, so we're going to look down the inside. Yeah, again, he just gives us space, enough room, in fact, that he covers off and leaves the inside open around the hairpin. So fantastic move for us, gets us another place up. Senna is ahead as we transition very smoothly for a lap later at the same place to Senna just ahead. He's a little bit far ahead at this point, and yet I still managed to get a move done. It's quite cheeky. I do end up hitting the barrier, and I'm very lucky not to lose one of my rear tyres, but it somehow gets us side by side with Senna. And we get through as we go through the swimming pool section. We head on to a few corners later where we see Jenson Button going slowly, so I'm not sure what issue he has, but another place for us. We're in P6, and that is we're only 2 places off our best finish in our career with P4, so can we match it? Well, I can tell you a few laps later, we gain 2 free positions because Perez and Rosberg come together and cause a safety car. So I could have pitted that lap, which in hindsight would have been a better strategy, because when the safety car comes in, I'm told to come into the pits, but you're going to lose too many positions to do that. No one else is pitting around, so we're going to try and do at least 1 lap on these old tyres as we get blue flags to let ourselves by the lapped cars. Grosjean ahead then, and we've got to start closing the gap as we came through Saint-Devote there, up the hill. Senna is still behind. We get the call that Senna behind is on max revs, trying to get past, so we up ourselves to try and close that pace advantage you get from running on higher fuel mixes. So we come through to Mirabeau. A little bit cautious. I think the reason why is because these tyres at this point were a bit knackered. I didn't really want to crash. And speaking of crashing, Ricciardo behind piling into the back of Senna, so that's going to give us a little bit of chance to get away. Quite lucky there that that crash happened, because I think Senna might have had a move on us. But at the end of this lap, we do end up pitting in. You see the Ferrari ahead there. We do overtake him, but we're not going to hold him as we come into the pits. We get a decent 3-second stop from memory. So the Ferrari go past, but we maintain position from one of the Toro Rosses behind. I would imagine it would be Ricciardo, seeing as we're so close, and with his damage in the pits, I'm not sure we're going to see him again this race. So now our race is all about catching up Alonso and seeing if we can get any further places or just remain in 6th. Regardless, still a good position to be in, especially in a car like this. We'll be gaining some places from people pitting regardless, as we begin to close the gap to Alonso, who is now being held up by Grosjean ahead. So hopefully we can use this opportunity where Alonso will take Grosjean and we can follow our way through into P4. Could be wishful thinking, but we'll see what happens as we come around turn 7 again, just riding that curb a little bit too much, getting on the power and getting a little bit of wheel spin, so we don't want to burn out our tyres just yet. Not that tyre wears an amazing factor or a significant factor you need to worry about in this Grand Prix. As we head down to the Nouvelle chicane once more, and Alonso's really being slowed up by Grosjean, and like I said, I'm being quite cheeky with track limits there, trying to get a move on Alonso as we head through the swimming pool section, and I get a little bit too close. That turn 12, I get a little bit too close to the curb on a number of occasions on passing laps, and it's almost like I am going to spin off into the barrier at turn 13, but somehow managed to keep it planted as we get DRS on the longest straight on the circuit. I think if I'd been a little bit braver, if I hadn't been in P5, I would have gone for that move, but seeing as what car we're in and the points finishes we've had this season, P5 is a very good one that we shouldn't take for granted really, but P5s don't make champions, so I'm quite keen to put on a move later on in the Grand Prix. As we head down to the hairpin, is there a move there? No, we're way too far behind here. So Alonso really struggling behind a slow Grosjean, and he is within range of us putting a move on, but as soon as we get to straights, as is the case this season, they do begin to pull away. It's the corners where we make it up. As we head down to the Nouvelle chicane once more, managed to keep a decent distance away from the barrier on the inside. Don't want an unsettled car. Swimming pool section once more. Again, another place where I'm just going to lose grip and almost plough into the barrier. And I was pushing pretty hard at that point, as you can see at turn 15, just carrying a little bit too much speed into the corner, trying to brake. And that lack of confidence in the car carries on for a number of corners, as you can see through the Rascas, just understeering, going a little bit wide. And I think at this point I sort of resigned myself to finishing P5, but fortunately we go for another lap. So Alonso has a bit of an incident with Grosjean because he's going slowly, because Hamilton has either lost his front wing or is suffering the same fault that Button was, and that allows Alonso to go through Grosjean. He pulls wide to go past Hamilton, and we don't get the move past Grosjean, and it was quite annoying, to be honest. I thought the move was on there. We could have finished P3 on the podium. So I go for a little cheeky move. I do cut the corner, to be honest. The FAA don't put us up on it. Grosjean stays ahead. I do feel a little bad. I did cut the corner. I don't really want to cheat. So we go through the swimming pool section, and I think, P4s it's good, but I do want to be on the podium at this point. The first podium of the career, of the season, is just in sight. I'm doing everything I can to try and attack in a calm but aggressive fashion. So I do think turn 1's going to be a good move here if I can get close enough, a little bit like Alonso, where we're gaining time, but I don't want to go down the inside and risk a collision or damage, because I don't want to finish anywhere lower than where we currently are. So we sort of hold position a little bit, pick our moves carefully. This is a corner where, or a track I should say, where one mistake can be really punishing. Just look for down the inside, but it was closing. It was a little bit wishful thinking to think that the move would be there, so I'm glad I pulled out that move before it began. We come down to coming up to turn 9 through the tunnel. We're still behind. The Lotus begins pulling away on the straight. I'm just trying to deploy any curves to stay together, hoping that there will be some kind of mood into the chicane. We hear there's slower cars ahead, so I'm hoping that the lap traffic will give us an opportunity to pass, as we're really trying to get past Grosjean here. And we head to the end of the lap. As you can hear, Webber is in the pit, so we are on the podium for our first race of the season, but can we get P2? This is the last race of, sorry, the last lap of the race, I should say. As we head past the casino, Grosjean's a little bit ahead, but we can still try and keep that, still try and close that gap as much as we can as we head down into Mirabeau and then the hairpin. Grosjean is ahead, but we are closing as we take a bit of a hefty chunk out of the corner, and that is our first warning for corner cutting of the race, which I'm quite surprised about, if I'm honest. Not that it pays much, because as soon as we get to the not so straight in the tunnel, I kind of wobble on the exit of turn 7. I don't get a good launch, but we seem to manage to close the gap up even more so that cut the corner. We get a good run as we come into turn 12 to back. Can we close the distance to Grosjean? I'm not sure we can, as we've got only a few more corners to do it, so we're going to have to put a move through Raskas if it's going to happen, and unfortunately Grosjean just a little bit too far ahead. The final corner to go. Can we get a good exit DRS? We will have, as we sprint to the finish line. Fernando Alonso in P1. We can't quite get Grosjean, but P3 in our rookie season at Monaco. Our teammate in P9, the objective P8. Not a bad finish, to be honest. It's a shame we couldn't quite grab that P2. Maybe if we were a little bit closer and had a bit more of an opportunity at that time where Hamilton was slow and Grosjean and Alonso managed to filter past, we could have been on the second step of the podium. We can't grumble too much because it's a podium nonetheless. Raises us to P8 in the championship, only 3 points behind Romain Grosjean in P6. So we could target that as our objective for the end of the season. P6 is sort of optimistic, but the way things are going, could well be possible. As we take a look now on where our teammate is in the championship, P16, so we're firmly ahead. So we'll have a look at the cinematics, at the podium celebrations here at Monaco, held on the circuit. Our team here to celebrate our first podium, hopefully the first of many at the team, and hopefully the first of many in our career. So all that's left to say is, if you've made it this far, perhaps you have stayed this far. It would amaze me at this point. To thank you very much for watching. I do hope you enjoyed. Apologies for the underwhelming Spanish Grand Prix, but at least that means when you've got two races in an episode, I should say, it means you're a step closer to getting onto the more modern games. As always, your feedback is much appreciated, so if you do have any suggestions, please put them in the comments below. I will be sure to read them, as there aren't many comments these days, so your feedback will certainly be noticed, and if it is constructive, be very much welcome. Again, thank you very much for watching. Hope to see you in the next one. If not, no harm done. I hope to see you back one day, but maybe not today. So thank you for watching, have a good day, and I'll see you in the next one. Goodbye.